Welcome to Inner Voice of Knowing podcast. I'm Kaye, a shamanic leadership coach and healer, guiding you through life with a foot in both worlds. When you understand the terrain of the inner landscapes, the mental, emotional, spiritual, and energetic, you will become the leader within your physical life, both personally and professionally. After all, the power of change is in your hands. Let's get this journey started. Welcome back to Inner Voice of Knowing. I'm going to take a little bit of a lead from the last episode in brand values, and I'm going to share with you at least one of mine that just keeps coming to the forefront. It's wrapped up in so many conversations that I have. It's probably, one of the first of the few of my brand values, and given that I am my brand, they are my values. They're how I live my life, not just how I do my business. But this conversation comes up a lot, and it's to do with the separation of the seen and the unseen, or the spiritual and the physical aspect of people's lives and people's businesses. Many years ago, after I downsized my business and I ventured back out into the world and re-entered the workforce and progressed my way through management and varying roles and those roles growing, and the team numbers that I had that I was there to look after. Every role, as you've probably heard me tell this story, I had bullying accompanying me. And then when life and the training on that field had come to a completion, and I was brought back to my shamanic leadership life coaching, or if you like, at a whole new level, armed with a whole lot of more learning, my first coach said to me, "You're either spiritual or your leadership." And I sat with that. It just felt so wrong. And then I would do posts and I'd be contacted again. You're either this or you're this. But here's the thing. The shamanic, spiritual, energetic, unseen world is so integrated within me. And that started way back in my 20s. And the power of integration and the lessons that I'd learned along the way about integration. All of that I applied, all those principles, all that mindset, taking beliefs, I suppose, and integrating them into truths of absolute knowing for myself, is what changed my life, is what empowered me, which is what got me through those 10 years of varying bullying, the way that I view the world, the way that I move through the world, the way that I call on the inner and unseen to empower, to enhance, to guide me through the physical world. And another one of my values is authenticity. So as I examined those, as I did the journey of remembering and reintegrating after living predominantly in my business for 20 years, shaman, people seeking me out, and then 10, 11 years re-entering the workforce, where the shamanic side of me, the unseen, is always there, but was not as predominant in play in terms of I was now in a different world, living more quietly, if you will, those practices of who I am and how I live, my authenticity. And this I'm finding is happening a lot. These gorgeous women that are so accomplished in the corporate world or in the roles professionally that they've been in and what they've done, that have this aspiration for change, So they leave that role, they create their business, they put the energy into that. And then comes that moment where someone usually says it to them because they also are, working through that process themselves. The integration of the spirituality into the business model that goes back into corporate. But here's the thing. Those two worlds, that way of being is what is empowering and guiding you through your life. The more you integrate it, if you're living and applying it, not just conceptualizing it. You can't separate them. It's all those unseen aspects. It's your meditative practice. It's your yoga. It's all the things that you do and apply and align to that ignited that courage to leave behind that which has felt safe and secure, to follow that knowing, that aspiration, that something else, that soul goal that can't be ignored forever. So how could you take out what brought you to that place to begin with? Because it's not spirituality and physicality. It's a relationship. Remember, soul energy first. It's as we integrate those spiritual principles, those spiritual practices, that drives the actions that you take throughout your world. Powerful. It's one. If you're only functioning from one and trying to separate the other, it's like, that's not a full tank of fuel. So here's what I've got from my blueprint with Kath Sutherland, who was our amazing guest on the last program. And Kath and I were discussing, and Kath was explaining that, how many blueprints she's done with companies and entrepreneurs. And that we can all have, the name integration, but the way we view it will be different. So I feel to really share with you mine at this point in time. Integration is love, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, and ownership of all aspects of self. To encourage the integration of our guides, their archetypes, and their wisdom that moves within us, and express this as our own I am. That's where wholeness comes in, the rejection of nothing, and the acceptance of all things. Integration, the rejection of nothing, and the acceptance of all things. Now, it's really important, and this might challenge some of you with the integration of guides, their archetypes, their wisdom. And it's a powerful one to let it land. Okay, so let's come back to the fact that the universe exists within you, and therefore you exist within the universe. Everything is one, all connected. We become more courageous and more integrated when we own that wisdom. So when you perceive that you have an external guide with you, but you do not own that wisdom as part of your own, because that aspect is actually an aspect of yourself to be reintegrated, to be claimed, to be brought into your voice, your I am voice, taking ownership of, integrating the energy of the guide. the archetype it represents. So if it, shows itself as Native American or Egyptian or whatever it might be, what is that representative of archetypally? What gifts are you being called? What wisdom are you being asked to integrate and own and bring it back home into oneness? Because the truth is, the universe exists within you. You are a divine spark of the whole. You are a divine spark of all that there is, has been, ever will be. Everything is of one. And the more that you can embody and integrate that and speak from that knowing, the more accepted you also are by those that you perceive outside of yourself. It becomes your language. It's not, well, my guides tell me, my guides do this for me, which is a separation, which is an illusion. It's one voice, one energy when it's integrated. The rejection of nothing and the acceptance. And acceptance is that bringing into yourself of all things. Now, isn't that the journey that we do with the concept when we're starting out and we the concept of meditation? When it gets brought into application, the consistency of application till it becomes so integrated, this is just a part of who I am, how I am, and what I need. The same as the way that we think. It's a concept. We apply it. We continue to apply it until it becomes so integrated that there is no choice, because you have the knowing of the change that it creates for you, the power that it gives through you. That's why we become different the more that we integrate. It's like I'm a different woman, a different person to who I was a year ago, to who I was 2 years ago, to, I'll be another updated version of myself in another 6, 8, 12 months. The more I continue to integrate, bringing into that oneness, that wholeness. So it's just your voice. It's how you look at the world. It's how you change your world. It's how you've changed how you move through the world, speak through the world. It's part of what gave you the inspiration, the aspiration to leave a corporate world, to create a world and a business on your terms, even if you're taking it back into the corporate. And as you've seen, there aren't certain groups of people that are deeply spiritual. If you haven't already listened to the previous episode with Kath Sutherland, go and listen to who some of her clients have been. Because then there's this resonance, which brings me to being authentic. I've had people say to me, maybe, Kaye, if you changed some of your language. Why would I do that? To make it more acceptable for who? I have gorgeous women that I work with and, come to ceremony and I interact with and come for healings and participate in the group coachings. And not all of them are entrepreneurs, but there's that common thread. Oh, I don't talk like this when I'm with my friends. Oh, I don't talk like this, with my family. Why not? Oh, not that woo-woo. And I'll tell you now, what's woo-woo? Because you've been a soul a divine spark of all that there is, far longer than you've been a human in this lifetime. Let that one land. So how can it be woo-woo if it's actually your truest nature? Your truest, it's eternal. When you transition, you leave this body behind. And this body either goes back into the earth or it goes into the fire. But the soul becomes a part of all that there is. Oneness, vastness. So what is the deeper truth here? The deeper truth is soul, energy, universe that exists within you, and therefore you exist within that. So how can that be woo-woo? It's incredibly grounded. The integration is part of the grounding process, the application of grounding, because it's not to take us away from being human. It's to amplify and expand the experience, enhance it. Interesting. Here's what I have with one of my other values, authentic. We are authentic and true to all the expressions, or I am authentic and true to all the expressions of who I am. This is what I encourage for all of us. We don't hide behind masks in order to please other people. We understand that it's not just about the higher expressions of who we are, it's also about expressing our perceived flaws, embracing the fact that we are all horribly human and perfectly imperfect. And that brings us back to the integration process of love, compassion, understanding, forgiveness, and ownership of all aspects of self. And then that ties into the consciously crafting and creating. We talk about energy and being in the resonance. So when you're being integrated, when you're allowing that voice of wisdom, when you're allowing your authentic language, your authentic self to move through the world, there will be those that are interested. There will be those that listen. There will be those that will be moved by what you say. And you do it because it's just the natural expression of who you are, how you move through the world, how you enhance your life, and how you do business. Whether you're an entrepreneur or someone who's trying to hide who you are from the family. I don't go out of my way to have, I'm not here to push my agenda onto somebody else. But if the family's talking about something, and I don't mean my immediate family, I mean the family I grew up in, I will talk in my language. I will talk from the lenses that I look through, from what is perceived. I recently had an experience going to a different state where I grew up to visit my soon-to-be 94-year-old mother. COVID test, first time I've ever had COVID, and my husband right at the front door of my mother's aged care centre. Don't need to go into the rest of it. It was challenging to begin with until I integrated the process. I integrated it by feeling my upset, by expressing anger privately back in the motel room, and then by recognizing my fear. All of that took about 10 minutes. This is like being the river flowing over and around. This is about being authentic to all the expressions of who we are. That it's not just about the higher expressions, it's about expressing our perceived flaws as well. And then came, okay, what's the insight? only goodness comes from God or the universe, even if I can't see it at the time. Why am I having this experience now? What's the gift in this? But I got there by being authentic and by integrating. And then I was having a conversation with one of my brothers when I'd returned back to Perth, and he went into, oh, isn't it this and isn't it that? Now, there's a lot that he doesn't like to hear. So I just say, no, I don't view it that way. But I don't stay silent in the expression of who I am. I'm not going to change my language completely to suit somebody else. I might change the way I communicate to somebody if I'm trying to connect and create a bridge, or I will relate to what that is like. But I won't innately tamper with who I am, my form of expression, and how I do business. And it's so important, because if you leave a job, or if you're living part of your life where you think you have to compartmentalize, you know, you're either spiritual, but now you're creating a business to go back into corporate to present that. Oh, you can't be all of who you are. What if the corporate is needing you to be that way? Deep-seated calling you to be that way, because some people will resonate and other people it will ignite. Turn on a light switch somewhere inside. And when you're integrated, remember, you're grounded. You're grounded in how you express. You make sense of how it enhances this, that, or the other. People will accept you because you're not trying to push some belief or anything. You're just saying how things are. The more you integrate, the more you be authentic, the more you recognize you're not living woo-woo. What is woo-woo? We are, in truth, soul, energy, conscious crafters and creators of our world. The more we apply this, we see what's illusionary. The way I see the world, the way I experience the world, the way I move through the world is not how I did it years ago. As I take off the masks to please other people, as I watch others take off the masks to please other people, but they do that unveiling with love, compassion, understanding, and forgiveness. It's a beautiful thing. The world is calling for what you do and how you do it and how you express it. Don't get caught up in everything that's happening around you, because everybody's got their own voice. Everybody's got their, I'm going to tell you how to do this. This way is the way. Well, it might very well be, but if you're not integrated, if you're not in touch, if you're not being authentic, if you're not dialing up your inner voice of knowing, power, and potential, how do you know which way is the way? Or do you just feel harpooned and pulled in all these different directions that really just feeds into your fear that you're not going to be successful, that you can't do this, that you don't know enough? And then you're adapting your energy to be of a frequency that's not authentic to you and wonder why things are not happening. You need to flow in acceptance and faith and grow and keep tapping back in to be guided. There was something that was happening for me and it just didn't feel right. Doesn't mean the coach isn't awesome, doesn't mean what they're doing isn't awesome, but something didn't feel quite right. And when I went and meditated and I contacted my future successful self and had a conversation, I got a clearer picture of what I need, from what to take out of what was being coached and presented. It wasn't a, do it or don't do it. There was this beautiful tapestry in between. But how did I find out what that was? By going within, by listening to my own inner voice of knowing, by drawing on my shamanic practices of being able to access, which anyone can do when you know how, future selves. Be given the guidance, be given the wisdom. That's what turns out a lot of the noise over there. Rather than just a quick leap, oh, I'll do that free course, oh, I'll do this, oh, I'll do this, oh, I read that book, I'll read that, oh, I do this, I'll do this. And then we are lost in who we are, how we do it, how we need to do it, how we need to move through it. And caught up in everyone else's agenda. I'm now watching a couple of incredible people that I know that have had that, oh my gosh, the spiritual and the physical, how do I put those together in business? Do I separate them? And of course they don't, and they've been going through the integrative process, and oh my gosh, the power of what they're writing on social media platforms that is so their voice, so powerful, so grounded, so authentic. It's a supercharged energy. It's a supercharged post. It's a supercharged language that's so true to them. And you can tell they're completely integrated. And the minute that happens, they start attracting the people that love that. Going from fewer clients to more clients. Just coming out of the woodwork. They just come from, no gigs in the corporate to increased. So ask yourself, what is it that you are keeping separate in your personal life or in your professional life? If you're in business for yourself, what is it that is needing to be integrated? What is it that you're rejecting? What do you need to bring love, compassion, understanding, and forgiveness and ownership to? What do you project out there as woo-woo and need to let it come in and settle in a grounded way that needs to be brought into that acceptance? And what parts of yourself are you hiding out of a judgment? Don't do business someone else's way. Don't do life someone else's way. And there's always going to be somebody that rejects you and somebody that just absolutely loves you. Focus on those that support you, that resonate with you. And sometimes it takes time. Like when I talk about the integration of your guides and their archetypes and their wisdom, and own that wisdom as your own voice. Coming from the I am, own those gifts as your own. Integrate them. That can be very challenging for some in the beginning. But then they take that concept and they explore it. They don't reject it. They explore it, and then suddenly it lands like, I get it. That's why we don't want to reject something. That's why we need to be true to all expressions of who we are. That's the way to do business. And that's the way to do life. The business of life. Don't hide. Don't keep changing yourself to suit what someone else says or what you think is required. Take your aspired ideas, take your concepts and integrate them through the application. Be authentic and recognize that authenticity, you've always been authentic if you're unconscious and you're just being true to who you believe yourself to be. But once you become conscious, then there's a new level of authenticity, of aspects to claim. So we are continually deepening our understanding and our relationship to our authentic self. And we're continually being called to journey through the integration process. Otherwise, you are just dancing around the edges. And that's not growth. And to be honest, it's simple, but yes, it can feel challenging until that process is integrated and you understand there is no other way of truly being. It's like you've aligned your will with that of the divine will. And it's the thrill of the ride, even though sometimes it's unnerving. Even though sometimes you're feeling you're exposing yourself and putting yourself out there. Better to do that and shine than go into the shadows and hide. So there are two of my brand values that stood out after my conversation with Kath that I have felt that have been really, really important. It's a union, the spiritual and the physical, the seen and the unseen. It's a beautiful tapestry. And you may want to separate them through your beliefs, but the truth is beyond the shadow of the belief system. You cannot separate them. You must embrace and integrate, knowing that one serves the other. And then the physical experience comes back and serves the soul growth. And then the soul and the energy serves and directs the physical. And then the physical experience enhances the soul. You can't pull that apart. You can just embrace, understand, and integrate. Catch you on the next episode. Remember, the power of choice and change, I flipped it up this week, is in your hands. Join me on my next episode. And if you love this podcast, please subscribe by clicking on the plus button if you're on Apple, or like and follow on Spotify, rate and review. And please share Inner Voice of Knowing with your friends.